If we could all take our seats, we're about to begin. The time is now 5 o'clock. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Stephen Papandin. I'm the Deputy General Counsel for the Long Island Railroad. I will serve as the hearing officer for tonight's public hearing. Bear with me, if you would, while I read a lengthy statement for the record and give out some instructions. This hearing is to provide the public with the opportunity to comment on proposed changes in fares, tolls, and charges affecting transportation on MTA subways and buses, the commuter railroads, 9 bridges and tunnels, and the Staten Island Railroad. To make the public aware of this hearing, advertisements were published in the Daily News, Newsday, New York Times, the Journal News, the Poughkeepsie Journal, the Daily Challenge, the Amsterdam News, and El Diario, and notices of the hearings were posted on the MTA website and in bilingual signs in station buses and trains and mailed to interested parties. The MTA's website, www.mta.info, describes these proposals in detail and includes tables of proposed fares for MTA's commuter railroads, the Long Island Railroad and Metro-North Railroad, as well as for the MTA bridges and tunnels proposed crossing charges. This brochure, which is available at the table outside, and other details of these proposals are available from the information tables outside this hearing room, where you may also ask our staff questions or fill out comment forms. The public is also encouraged to submit written comments via our website or by mail to Casey Morgan at the MTA, 2 Broadway, 4th floor, New York, New York, 10004. The staff at the tables outside can also provide you with that address. If you do not wish to speak but have written comments that you would like to submit this evening, you may hand them to an usher or drop them off at the information table outside. This proceeding is not an open and question and answer session. The members of the MTA Board of Directors and senior management staff are here to listen to what members of the public have to say about the proposals so that public comments are taken into account when final decisions are made by the MTA Board on the proposals. So board members will be listening, not commenting this evening. As I said, though, there are expert staff at the tables outside to take and answer questions. All spoken comments presented tonight, all correspondence, all emails that we receive, and all comment cards will be incorporated into the official hearing record and reviewed by the MTA Board. In addition to the hearings, and in an effort to provide additional opportunities for the public to comment, the MTA is holding 4 satellite sessions at which the public can offer comments that will be videotaped. These videotaped remarks will also be transcribed and entered into the record that will be reviewed by the board. The dates and locations of the satellite sessions are also available at the tables and in the brochure. For the record, today's date is December 3rd, 2014. The time is 5 p.m., and the hearing site is the Hilton Long Island in Salon C&D at 598 Broad Hollow Road, Melville. Before we begin, I'd like to briefly explain the procedures for tonight's public hearing. First, I will call the names of people who have registered to speak in the order in which they have registered. This could include persons who registered online or by mail or who registered in person tonight. If you wish to speak tonight but have not signed up, please fill out a registration form before 8 p.m. when we will stop taking registrations. If you have pre-registered to speak either by telephone or on our website, we ask that you sign in at the table for registrants. If you haven't already, so that we know you are with us tonight. It's the same table right outside the door. I'll be calling out the names in groups of 2 or 3 registered speakers. When I call your name, please hold up the yellow registration card that you received until an usher can escort you to the podium. I'll then call your names in the order in which you registered. When you approach the microphone, please provide us with your name and state any affiliations that you may wish to announce, so that we may hear from all interested people tonight, and so we can be fair to all. Please ensure that your remarks do not exceed 3 minutes. The clock below will indicate how much time you have remaining, and when you have spoken for 2.5 minutes, a yellow light will appear, and you should begin to conclude your comments. Remember, if you run out of time, you may submit your complete written testimony to supplement your oral testimony. This hearing site is accessible to people who are mobility impaired, and sign language interpreter services are available, and your comments will be interpreted. This public hearing is being video recorded and will appear on the MTA website within 1 week from today at www.mta.info under the section titled About the MTA. Seated next to me are board members and senior staff of the MTA. I'd like to introduce them. Board members Jeffrey Kay, Vincent Testator, Mitchell Pally, John Malloy, and the President of the Long Island Railroad, President Patrick Nowakowski. At this time, I'll begin calling the first registered speaker, who is Vishal Chowdhury. Please approach the microphone.
Good evening. Just wanted to know how long these fares are valid for. You're saying approximately 4.25%. Are we saying for the next 12 months and then the fares will increase thereafter, or this is something that's just a patch? Are we saying that the fares will increase again 5% 2 years down the road? And then the other question was, I personally have been commuting from Syosset and now in Farmingdale for the past 15 years. I understand the need for raising fares for equipment and for better service. How come the Long Island Railroad and the MTA in general don't ever say, let's increase or better the service? For example, Farmingdale takes approximately 50 to 55 minutes to commute to Penn Station, and there's a buffer of 7 minutes considered on-time performance. How come we never say we can do better or we can get the train faster to Penn Station in 45 minutes? This has been obviously, my experience for the past 15 years. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other registrants? At this time, there being no additional registrants, the time is 5:08. We will recess until such time as we have additional registrants. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back on the record. The time is 5:22, and our first speaker is Daniel Carpin.
My name is Daniel Carpin. I reside at 3 Harbor Hill Drive, New York. I want you to stop the clock while I have a handout to give to everyone. And my name is Daniel Carpin. I reside at 3 Harbor Hill Drive, Huntington, Long Island. I have created a Long Island Railroad rating chart to rate the performance of the railroad. Superman, we have timeliness. All trains arrive ahead of schedule. Outstanding performance. It's hard to believe, but I've actually been on trains that have come to Penn Station as much as 9 minutes ahead of schedule. Acceptable, all trains arrive on time, not quite adequate, general delays of 5 to 10 minutes, unacceptable, 20 minutes late, few trains during snowstorms, total failure, Long Island Railroad on strike. Conductors, outstanding performance, polite and courteous, acceptable. Conductor argues with passenger, passenger wins. Not quite adequate. Conductor argues with passenger, conductor wins. Unacceptable. Conductor fights with passenger, total failure. Conductor walks off job. Cleanliness, outstanding performance. As clean as a brand new Rolls Royce. Acceptable. Trains cleaned daily. Not quite adequate. Trains cleaned monthly. Unacceptable. As dirty as the subways. Total failure. Dirtier than an IRT subway car. Passengers, outstanding performance. Passengers are happy, acceptable. Passengers gripe to themselves, not quite adequate. Passengers gripe to each other, unacceptable. Passengers gripe to the press, total failure. Passengers refuse to pay fare. Air conditioning, all trains have AC all the time, all acceptable. All trains have AC working, sometimes too hot or too cold, not quite adequate. A small number of cars have no AC, unacceptable. Large numbers of cars have no AC, total failure, none. The same for heating. Weather, outstanding performance. All trains run well in all weather, acceptable. Trains run in all weather except floods. Not quite adequate. General delays of 10 minutes due to weather. Unacceptable. Trains are slow due to snow. Total failure. A blizzard. No trains. Politicians. Outstanding performance. Quiet. Acceptable. Praise for Long Island Railroad. Not quite adequate. Promises made to have the best commuter railroad in 90 days. Unacceptable. Let's have a bond issue of capital improvements. Total failure. Screaming at the MTA. No promises made or kept. Press. Outstanding performance. No news is good news. Acceptable. Occasional article about improved service. Not quite adequate. Frequent stories about late trains. Unacceptable. Daily column on railroad. Total failure. Editorials demanding a new Long Island Railroad president.
Your time is now up. Please conclude your remarks. You can submit anything in writing you would like to the table outside.
Anyone else who wants a copy, you can have it.
Thank you very much. The next speaker this evening is Caitlin Miser.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Caitlin, and I was a commuter for 5 years on the Port Jeff Huntington line. I say was because I left my dream job in the city this past summer, mainly because of the stress caused by my daily commute on the Long Island Railroad. I will not turn this into a rant on the countless times I was late to work due to track problems in the East River Tunnel or trains being held with no further information provided. But I will take a few minutes to tell you why I do not support the fare increases for Long Island Railroad commuters. Forget what I've experienced over the last year alone. Let's look at the past 2 days. Monday, I had to go into the city for a trade show, and guess what? My train was held for 45 minutes just outside of the tunnel, causing me to miss my first lecture of the day. Yesterday, my sister took an early train to get a head start on her day, only for her train to be disabled, causing her to be an hour and a half late to work. Now I know if it was not 5 p.m. on a Wednesday when most commuters are still in the city, many would laugh because of how closely they can relate to stories like this. I could speak on stories like this for hours upon hours, but I am here to just ask one question. How do you propose a fare increase in conjunction with decreasing quality of service? I do not get paid more to do less work, and I have trouble wrapping my head around how the Long Island Railroad can try to justify that concept. Taking the Long Island Railroad is a job in itself. It's exhausting, debilitating, and undeniably frustrating. This is why I now work around the corner in Melville. But the solution here should not have to be to find another job closer to home. We, especially us that live in Huntington, are an hour away from the greatest city in the world. The only problem is we can't get there without a train cancellation or a delay. I don't think that everyone should have to give up their dreams solely because of the delays and frustration caused with the commute, but I definitely think that we need to reevaluate the fare increases and work on improving the quality of this train service so that nobody else has to leave their job like I did this summer. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional registrants? There being none, we will recess at this time. The time is now 5:28. Thank you. We're going to go back on the record. The time is 5:34. Next registered speaker is Yuki Endo.
Good evening, Londonese. You can resident of the Jackson High Queens and member of the Long Island Bus Riders Union, which represent Long Island's public bus service. I depend and rely on the New York City subway buses, North County Nice Bus, Westchester County B line buses. I have a mixed opinion regarding the MTA fare hike. And I do not support fare hike because it will also affect Roosevelt Island Turnway, Nice Bus, which is the county B line buses which use MTA network. I know the North County executive LRB Longano is raising fare for the Nice Bus riders using the cash or the mobile ticketing application, but raising the network fare for the Nice Bus riders won't work. Because if the MTA and the Nice Bus was separate fare unlimited network or the dealers unfair network, I cannot be used on a Nice Bus. Another reason I don't support fare hike that North County executive made a big mistake at taking away Long Island bus operation from the MTA. And ever since after period of the operation of the North County Nice Bus, new drivers on the Nice Bus are constantly lose or get lost in passenger service. And error data like a street fair or play happened in Queens where MTA and the Nice Bus share the MTA and Nice Bus dispatcher share work together to come up with a deeper communication because period of the Nice Bus always get off guard and snow details, even in Long Island. Today, on board Nice Bus, 3:30 p.m. and 72 Borden, H online, and the new driver owners refused to give me paper tonka for the South County turn the buses because new drivers are not trying to give network a passenger on a Nice Bus. For tonka to the South County Hub of the Long Beach and 69 bus. Reason why Nice Bus added one network combination at the national or the shopping center. For network combination at the Hempstead Transit Center often breaks down, and forcing the Nice Bus rider to pay by cash or mobile ticket application or look for the stores that sells network. And if the machine cannot be provided, why don't you to provide network bus service with cooperation with the Nice Bus at the selected location? It's unfair with the county B-line buses and the private bus company at the studio with the network bus service. I will support a fair hike if the MTA provide bus service into the North County's regional or major train station where Nice Bus rider will be able to refill their network or purchase network. Please do not increase Saturday network because it's already expensive. I do not support fare hike on the commuter rail because trains are often delayed and sometimes delays affect on-track and the usual trains as well since they share a train track. Another reason I don't support fare hike is because of the near and light customer and don't identify network loss. At the same time, Nancy passes Saturday network yesterday on network about the New York City subway buses, Nassau County night bus, out of Westchester County building. I'm not a New York City transit station agent and the New York City bus operator. I gave free and free ride. However, I don't think that night bus or the building bus driver I gave a free ride because of the MTA network agreement. And all Long Island radar and network loss radio need to be open 24 hours during the freezing weather, heavy rain, or heat wave. Since your study, you can know.
Thank you for your comments. If you would like to submit something in writing, you can submit it to the desk outside. We have one additional registrant, Robert Wiesenfeld. If I pronounce your name incorrectly, let me know.
Good evening. I'm Robert Wiesenfeld. I live in Bayside, Queens, and I'm here speaking on behalf of myself and I'm sure many other drivers. I'm not here to comment on the toll and fare increases that have been proposed themselves, but rather on the way the MTA collects tolls, specifically the consumer unfriendly provisions contained in the Easy Pass customer service agreement. As some people may know, years ago the State Thruway Authority had an Easy Pass customer service agreement that capped the tag holder's liability to $50 in the case of a lost or stolen Easy Pass tag. That went by the wayside when the agencies decided to enroll together in the Easy Pass consortium, and that leaves, unfortunately, drivers exposed to liability in a way which I think violates all precepts of consumer protection. Additionally, there are other provisions in the Easy Pass customer service agreement which I think are unfair, specifically the indemnification agreement and the provision requiring tag holders to pay for attorney's fees and collection costs in the event of a dispute. I would say that insofar as this is a system, a payment system with technology that works promulgated by the authority, and as I've often heard it said by representatives of various authorities that they're not aware of customers incurring large losses, however they may define that, however they may define what a large loss is. They're not aware of consumers incurring large losses as a result of a lost or stolen Easy Pass tag. The agency, nevertheless, is in the best position to insure against that loss. An individual consumer is not able to do that and stands to risk a great deal in the event that a crooked parking lot attendant or car thief steals the tag. There is a limitation in the current agreement. Once you notify the authority that the tag is lost or stolen, you're exempted from further liability. I do not think that that in and of itself is sufficient. So I would like to see, wherever the tolls go, for the authority to put some more thought into consumer protection for those people who drive, and specifically to re-implement the $50 cap. That would be a good start and something I think many drivers would appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional registrants? There being none, we will recess. The time is 5:43. Thank you. We're going to go back on the record now. We have one registered speaker, Alexander Ho. Please approach the podium. You have 3 minutes. The time is now 6:07.
Members of the board, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. This is my first time doing this, so bear with me. I looked over the proposals, and it seems that most of the fare increases seem reasonable. I don't have any qualms about the Long Island Railroad, but my issue is really with the two proposals for the subway fare. I don't understand why you would have one proposal in which there's a bonus for buying essentially two fares, and it comes out to essentially this almost the same amount as if you took away the actual bonus. Also, the way that the bonuses are calculated right now don't seem to make any sense. It should be pretty straightforward. You buy a certain amount, get one free, or something to that effect. Not practically speaking, when somebody has to go to the kiosk, try to figure out how much is on their Metro card, try to figure out a way to get to a third-party calculator to see how much they need to add in order to get to a round amount instead of having extra change on their card. So that's just something that maybe you as the board could consider if you decide to implement some sort of bonus rides for the subway. So that's all I have to say for the fare increases. On a separate note, if you do plan on advertising the focus groups on the Long Island Railroad, I don't suppose you could try to schedule those focus groups in such a way that's convenient for those who have day jobs to actually go ahead and participate in them as well. Sometimes they're not really scheduled well. So thank you very much again for letting me voice my opinion. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional registrants? There being none, we will again go back into recess. The time is 6:10. We're going to go back on the record. The time is 6:48. Before we begin, we have one additional MTA board member, Andrew Albert, with us at the dais. Our next registered speaker is Peter Fusham. You have 3 minutes.
First of all, I surrender, okay? I give up, all right? And here, you can have my wallet if you'd like, all right? If somebody would call 911 and tell them that there's a robbery on the Long Island Railroad in progress and the MTA is the perp. All kidding aside, first of all, this hearing is a formality. I think all of us understand and know that this is a fait accompli in terms of the fare increase. So I'm not going to spend my time dealing with that. What I'm going to do is ask questions. I thought Mr. Prendergast would be here tonight, but I will address this to Mr. Walkowski. Did I get that right? Okay. After the 2015 fare increase takes effect, can you guarantee to the Long Island Railroad commuters and passengers, and if there's any press here today present, that the MTA will not permanently cut in 2015 or 2016 Long Island Railroad trains, schedules, facilities, stations, ticket offices, ticket office hours, train staff, and ticket office personnel. That was a question.
You're just expressing your views. We will not be answering your questions tonight.
Oh, too bad. All right, well, another question I had, and can this body guarantee that the MTA will not raise Long Island fares again in 2015 and 2016? Obviously, we're not going to get an answer on that tonight. Okay. By the way, I have a MetroCard that I use. I also travel the subways when I go to work in Manhattan. And recently, I've now gone through 2 occasions in the last 6 months where those cards have been rendered void by your, well, it's actually not yours, as I say, Mr. Prendergast's turnstiles. And the question is, you know, how often is this happening? Is he aware of this? When I questioned the booth clerk at 18th Street and 7th Avenue, he reported that it happens a lot, every day. So something's going on. I've never experienced before in the last 5 or 7 years, never had this problem, but suddenly now all these cards are presenting problems. I'm just curious, does anyone have any statistics? Do we know how many people have submitted refunds for these voided cards in the past 12 months? Any statistics? Nope. Okay. Just curious, given the increase in fares that we're going to experience, is there any plan to deal with this? Any timetable? Probably not. Okay, a win-win situation for everybody here today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming this evening. Our next speaker is Steve Quigley. Mr. Quigley, you have 3 minutes to express your thoughts.
Gentlemen, my name is Steve Quigley. I'm an intra-island commuter. In other words, I go from Babylon to Mineola every day and back. There's only one problem in the fact that we're limited to one train. There's a 316 out of Mineola in the afternoon. There's a 518 out of Mineola. The time on the 518 is perfect for me, but in the meantime, if I miss that train, I wind up going back into Jamaica and then back out to Babylon. So what I'm asking is for you to consider more intra-island service, all right? Flexibility is what's needed if the central branch, which is what we travel on the way home, if the central branch was electrified, you would have much more flexibility in the event that there was a problem on the Babylon branch. If there was a problem on the main line, you could move trains around that way. So it's something to be considered for the future. More flexibility, central branch being electrified. A couple of other comments. One thing that I've noticed in my everyday commute to and from Mineola is safety, all right? And I'm most appreciative of the fact that the trainmen and everyone who works for the Long Island takes safety as of prime importance. My son goes to school in Poughkeepsie, goes to college up there. He takes the Long Island to Penn Station, then he changes at Penn and goes to Poughkeepsie on Amtrak or Metro North. I have no problems with sending him on the train. I would not want him to drive. The Taconic Parkway at night, not a bargain, all right? So I am most appreciative of the fact that safety, the trainmen, they've demonstrated it every day to me, and I see it, I watch what's going on. So in that respect, from management on down to the trainmen, most appreciated, because I just sit back, I relax, and on Friday afternoons we have our own little happy hour, but never mind, we won't go into that. We're on the double-deckers. That's what we take on from Babylon to Mineola. There's a definite shortage of equipment with the double-decker trains, and it really, really manifests itself during the summertime. A couple of years ago, when you first initiated the Cannonball from Penn Station, I took it on the Hamptons Reserve, and I was able to get on board, got a ticket. But in the meantime, on Fridays during the summer, I hate to say it, but going to the Hamptons, it's a zoo, all right? You really need more equipment, double-deckers, whether it's off the shelf from somebody else or the C1s that are presently at the Naugatuck Railroad up in Connecticut. We need more equipment because many times we should have 6 cars during the summer. We wind up with 5. Sometimes we have 4. And that's going in, that could be coming out. But the summertime, it really manifests itself as that's a big issue. East End service is really good. The Cannonball is great. Obviously, you built it. They will come. And it shows with the amount of people that take the Cannonball on a Friday afternoon or go to the Hamptons. They'd much rather take the train than drive. Did you see the expressway tonight? What a mess that was? There's no way. My option is to take the Southern State. It would take me roughly an hour in the morning if I took the Southern State. On the train, 25 minutes. We sit back, we relax, we take it easy. So that's very good. So you're talking about fares. Right now, fares are reasonable, all right? I have no problem with paying what we pay, which is about $149 a month from Zone 9 to Zone 4. But I generally don't agree with Newsday, but the editorial from Monday was Long Island commuters deserve more when fares go up. So what I'm asking for is for you to consider more intra-island service, possibly electrify the central branch of the railroad, and that's the way I think you could get more people to take the train. We get more for our money. So again, we appreciate the fact that safety is unsurpassed. We don't have to worry. Southern State, worry about getting there? Yeah, every day. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any additional registrants? No. Since we don't have any registrants at this time, we will go into recess. The time is 6:57. We're going to go back on the record. The time is 7:22. Our next registered speaker is Gerard Bringman. Please approach the podium. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. And for the record, I'm speaking on behalf of the Long Island Railroad Commuters Council. I'll be back in a few minutes to speak for myself. Okay, good evening. My name is Gerard Bringman, and I'm a member and past chair of the Long Island Railroad Commuters Council, the legislatively mandated representatives of the Long Island Railroad Riders. I'm a governor's appointee recommended to the LIRCC by the Suffolk County Executive. I begin by noting that the Long Island and Queens Fair hearings are being held on the same date, making it impossible for MTA board members to hear in person all of the public comments addressing LIR affairs made at these hearings. We have raised this issue in the past and are disappointed that hearings were not held on separate days. I am here this evening to discuss the fare increase proposals before you. While this proposal is less onerous than the increase approved in 2012, we continue to have many of the concerns that we expressed about the previous fare increase. We firmly believe that the Long Island Railroad riders must shoulder their fair share of the load to support the operations of the railroad, but must not stand alone in this effort. We do not see a commitment on the part of other stakeholders to join us in doing more to support the MTA's operating and capital needs and those of the Long Island Railroad, and thus cannot support this proposal. There are several issues that particularly affect Long Island. First, many riders will be subject not only to an increased fare on the Long Island Railroad, but will also see the New York City transit fares that they need to complete their travel rise as well. While there are small discounts for combined monthly LIR tickets and Metro cards, the discount does little to soften the blow of raising fares on both systems. Long Island will also soon face the loss of the New York Islanders, leaving Nassau and Suffolk counties with no major professional sports teams. We recommend that working with the area's professional sports team, the Long Island Railroad, implement a fan fare to encourage Long Islanders attending sporting events in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens to use the railroad as an attractive alternative to driving to these venues. We also hear from many riders that they would like to take the Long Island Railroad for weekend family outings, but find that once their children become 11 years of age and are required to pay full fare tickets for passage, changing this policy may seem to threaten a loss in revenue, but in fact, many of these families choose to drive to the destinations, depriving the Long Island Railroad of all revenue unless the family uses an MTA-operated crossing. Charging commuter college students full fare when the capacity is available arguably depresses ridership and revenue, as potential riders drive or use less convenient bus service. We need to carefully analyze the Long Island Railroad fare structure and how it may depress ridership, particularly at times and on routes where capacity is available. Other transit systems in the region find ways to accommodate these kind of riders. Why can't we do so here? The current funding structure of the MTA is rooted in the May 2009 agreement between the state and the MTA that provided for increased state financial assistance through new taxes and fees on motorists, taxi users, and business, and increased rider support through the program of regular fare adjustments. Planned service cuts were taken off the table as part of this agreement, but shortly afterwards, MTA finances turned negative when new revenues failed to meet projections, and money promised for the operation of MTA services was used to eliminate deficits in the state's general fund. The result was substantial service cuts, many of which have just at last been restored. This practice continues to the present day, as the state this year rated dedicated transit funding to pay debt service that had previously come from the state's general fund and promises to do so again. All the while, riders are being held to their substantial responsibilities under this arrangement. Most significantly, these fare proposals do not address the fundamental issues facing the MTA. Riders already pay a substantial share of the cost of operations, recently estimated by MTA management at 55.2% for 2015. This is above the 2014's projected fare box operating ratio of 54.6% and far higher than other large American transit systems providing similar services. Add this to the chronic failure of the state and local governments to provide for MTA capital improvements, which results in their financing through bond services from operating funds, and riders face a bleak future. Yet another blow to the riders is on the horizon, as the MTA's proposed 2015-2019 capital program contains a funding gap of $15 billion. The MTA can characterize this plan as a starting point for discussion, but it's going to take a lot of a talk to find sources other than riders to meet the shortfall. Riders need an active MTA board that takes its responsibility to riders seriously and carefully considers the implications of its financial actions. The MTA board cannot be reluctant to tell elected officials that more resources are required, since if we do not find alternative means of providing resources to the MTA and LIRR every 2 years, we'll be facing a steady shift of the cost of operating the system to the riders. We call on you to stand with us in advocating the MTA system and its riders, and I thank you for giving me a couple of extra minutes there.
Thank you for your comments.
All right, thank you.
Would you like to make comments in your personal capacity at this time, or?
Yes, actually I would, and basically just want to take the opportunity for a pet peeve of mine. I'm speaking as a motorist, not as a transit advocate. The Verrazano Narrows Bridge. I think it's an embarrassment that the MTA is going to ask for an increase on that bridge toll, and I'll tell you why. Have you been over it lately? It needs a paint job, and a paint job on a bridge that's subjected to saltwater air is not decorative. That air is corrosive, and if you don't take the time and the money to do some repairs, I honestly believe in 5 to 10 years you're going to be looking at Tappan Zee South. But since you are going ahead and you are asking for an additional $1 for each round trip, I'm going to make a request that will probably fall on deaf ears. Take that extra $1, put it into a dedicated fund for maintenance, and give that bridge a paint job. San Francisco wouldn't treat the Golden Gate Bridge the way the MTA treats the Verrazano Narrows. And it's a very important part of the infrastructure of New York City, and I think something needs to be done about it. And if you don't believe me, take a ride over it. Take a good look. See the corrosive on the bridge, and I think you'll agree. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any additional registrants? Since we have none, we will go into recess. The time is now 7:29. We're going to go back on the record. The time is now 8 p.m. There being no additional registrants this evening, this hearing is now concluded. Thank you for coming this evening.